So we're talking about Cruising today, which is getting a long overdue re-release on 4K UHD Blu-ray in the UK at the end of February. Matt is here, my name is Phil, we are Boys on Films. This is a crime thriller film from 1980, and it's directed by William Friedkin. Of course, was the director of many great movies from the 70s, especially. He was really big, obviously, with The Exorcist. There was a film called Bug, I think. Did you see that?
Yeah, from the Audies, about 20 years old.
So this is loosely based on a novel by the New York Times reporter Gerald Walker, and it's about a serial killer targeting gay men in the late 70s in the leather scene in New York. Very controversial at the time. I remember seeing this when I was young. Yeah, I think you saw it when you were in your teens as well.
I was early 20s. So why were you watching this in your teens?
Well, I was really intrigued by it. I don't remember much about it. This is the weird thing, because seeing it more recently, I don't remember any of the scenes in it. So maybe I didn't see it, or maybe I just knew about it, because it's one of those films that everybody knows about, or a lot of people know about. Probably for the wrong reasons, though. You know, there were lots of campaigners at the time when it came out in the cinemas in 1980, campaigning about the way that gay men were portrayed.
I know it's a controversial choice, but I think there's a different kind of take on it seeing it now than seeing it, help me with my math here, 45 years ago. Completely different world, society, different kind of ideas of what this culture is about and kind of the history and everything. It's such a strange time capsule of a movie that's gives it a lot, maybe even gives it more interest now than it might have had when it came out.
So let's talk about the story. So New York is caught in the grip of a sadistic serial killer. He's preying on the patrons of the city's underground gay scene. Al Pacino is the young rookie cop Steve Burns, who's tasked with infiltrating that S&M scene, the subculture, to try and lure that killer. He immerses himself deeper and deeper into the underworld. You can take that portrayal in a couple of ways. I know that William Friedkin, who is on one of the special features in this, obviously he's passed away now, but he does talk about the plot, and they had to reshoot, I think, the final scene. And obviously this review is going to contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen Cruising, I know it is quite old now, then get on it and watch it before you maybe watch this review, because we're going to spoil it, because I don't think we can talk about it without spoiling it, because there's so much to unpack. Let's just whiz past to the final scene. The final scene does show Al Pacino's character getting back with his girlfriend, because they split up because he's obviously this undercover cop who's trying to catch this killer. Some people look at that as him dealing with his own sexuality, but I never really got that. I never really thought that he was maybe bisexual or maybe had the deep-rooted gay feelings. I never thought that was the case.
Kind of on the opposite, but there's actually two results it could be. It could be he's gay and doesn't want to confront that reality, or he's not and he's actually straight, but he actually has anger towards this community and he is the killer wanting to do this. He also happens to be a cop, but he also happens to have these dark impulses to harm these people. So, or the third choice is he is gay, he's closeted, and he's the killer.
And he's the killer.
And wants to.
Yeah, because that final shot of him in the mirror, he's shaving, his girlfriend comes in and he says, "Oh, I'm back." And she says, "Oh, let's give it another go," kind of thing, because obviously they split up. There's a lot of mystery, I suppose, and a lot of is he, isn't he? And also, it's ambiguous, that ending, because I suppose you never really know what the ending is. It's up to you to interpret it. And I know that, you know, William Friedkin was quite keen on the audience making up that ending themselves, because I know that he was a big fan of not revealing too much, and also, you know, when the actors are on screen, he doesn't like rehearsals and stuff like that. He wants it to be quite spontaneous.
Yeah, there's also another outcome, I guess you could say. It makes the movie either really more interesting to the viewer or more confusing and frustrating, is that there could be more than one killer. There could be the killer that the police find at the end and kind of confront him in that situation where they capture him. or it could be both of them, Al Pacino and this guy, are both doing different numbers of the killings. Like the beginning part is the guy they capture, but maybe the last couple are Al Pacino, and he's starting out his run as the killer, as a new killer of the same group. So it's kind of like, I mean, it's purposely confusing. Also, Friedkin did this on purpose. He had different actors play the killer in the first kind of half of the film because you only get glimpses, little shadows of of a part of their face. The voice is could be the same man, but it could be a different person doing the voiceover. Do you know what I mean?
That voice
It's
made me
so
laugh
kind of
because it made me think of Ghostface in Scream. It was almost like he was saying, "Do you like scary movies?" That voice was
yeah, yeah.
so kind of cliche serial killer voice, wasn't it?
Right, but he also wore like aviator glasses and he was in shadow a lot, so and all the killers had dark hair. So it's kind of like, is it the same guy? Is it a different guy? You know what I mean? It's kind of like
Yeah.
purposely confusing.
Jeremy, who I was watching it with, he. I don't know whether it's fair to say that he probably didn't enjoy it as much as me, but he seemed to think that Al Pacino's character was a bit of a stalker in the sense that he was following this killer because he was secretly gay, and there are a couple of scenes which are kind of weird where he's watching this guy in his apartment.
Mhm.
And he's just like
Yeah.
waiting in the park, like maybe reading a paper, and he's just kind of like staring through the window. And
Mhm.
those scenes are so bizarre. And a lot of this film is quite bizarre, actually. I mean, the way that
Oh yeah.
scenes are framed, it goes from kind of one style to another. I mean, there's obviously a lot of violence in probably the first two thirds, maybe, and the final third of the film is quite downbeat and quite empty in a way. There's not a lot of dialogue, and it feels quite flat, that ending. Maybe that's intentional.
All the action element is over, and then it's just kind of the psychological
Yeah,
story of the killer and him being captured, and then Al Pacino doing the capturing, but maybe he's becoming something else. It makes it more haunting, kind of the end, because it's like you said, it's more silent than the rest of the film,
yeah.
and just kind of more strange. So I think that adds to the depth of it, and adds to the ominous fear of the movie. It's really what a weird movie.
I
Do you know
know
what I
it
mean?
is a really strange, curious film, isn't it? There's a really good special feature though. One of many interviews on this set with the actress Karen Allen, who plays Al Pacino's girlfriend, and it's called "I Want to Be the Curator." It's that brand new interview. So a lot of these interviews are new ones. There's a lot of old ones as well. Obviously, like I say, the one with William Friedkin at the Q&A. She does mention that at the time, scripts weren't given out either, so she took on this role and she was keen obviously to work with William Friedkin and Al Pacino, who I think she was friends with, and he was really kind to her during the making of the film as well. So Al Pacino, I think, respectful and supportive of her, because I think she was quite nervous. She was quite a young actress at the time, but she was saying that scripts weren't given out, so there was a lot of mystery to the film, which she found odd. And so she obviously couldn't read through to see what the overall story was, because she liked to, as an actress, kind of think about the rest of the story, not just her role, which I thought was quite interesting and also quite dark in a way. I don't know why that was, that the scripts weren't given to the actors, or maybe it was just her, I don't know, but obviously that added to the controversy. And her family at the time, she took her parents to see it, and I don't think her father was most enamoured by the subject matter. The gay club scenes are quite full on. I mean, particularly for that time, I suppose.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it was. Well, first of all, this is a movie by, I forgot the studio, maybe Sony. I forgot who. It's like a major studio with this lead actor who had won, I think he'd won either won or been nominated for multiple Oscars. He was a huge, huge star at that point, probably the peak of his star power. And he decides to do this movie, which is really dark and weird. And it's kind of a huge gamble for him to do this film, right? Where he has to like at least act like a gay guy in 1980, which is like a career killer, I think, at that time to do that. And I think his career faltered a little bit after doing this movie because I think people just had some weird conception about him or something, which is obviously something of the time period probably didn't help that he was doing it then. But yeah, what a great leap for an actor to be like, yeah, I'm gonna do this completely crazy role where I'm like in these like leather bars, like watching all this stuff go down in the
I
bars
know.
and like be part of that world. For 45 years ago, that's kind of a nuts thing to do.
Yeah, it's a brave choice. I know that, there are obviously many people that love this movie, particularly with film critics like Mark Kermode here in the UK. He's a big fan. And he's, very supportive of LGBT rights and, is a decent guy. Seems like a decent guy. And obviously there are a lot of gay people that are fans of this film as well, yourself included. And I don't know where I sit in terms of finding this offensive and not finding it offensive, because there are a lot of gay people that do find this movie offensive, and they don't like the way that gay people or that particular section of queer club culture is represented, because obviously it's very dark and with the killer theme, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, one thing I think on the positive is that it's this whole scene going on that this straight guy, or supposedly straight guy, Al Pacino's character, goes into, and the club goers in the multiple different bars he goes to don't really care about him, and they're not hiding anything or like, oh, I think that guy's straight. Let's not do X, Y, and Z. They're kind of like, you're in our world, and if you don't like it, then you can leave. You know what I mean? I think there's something powerful about all the scenes in the bars where all the people are having fun and doing their thing, and like they don't care what the outside world is thinking about them. And multiple times in the bar, you can tell he's not used to going there because he looks a little nervous and shifty, and people are kind of giving him attitude because he is acting that way. And I think that's kind of interesting for, once again, like a 45-year-old movie to have that attitude. A major movie with a major movie star that's like a huge release with this group of people who are like, yeah, this is us, and we don't really care what you think about our
Yeah,
life. Do you know what I mean? I think that's kind
yeah,
of
absolutely. And
interesting.
I also don't think that William Friedkin would have found it controversial or derogatory either, because I don't think he was that kind of person. So, I mean, the way I read it is that it's not like, every gay person was a bad character, because there was a character, I suppose you could say that because he's killed off towards the end, that positive reflection of a gay character doesn't survive. So I suppose that is a bad thing.
Yeah, you're talking about the writer character, his neighbor.
Al Pacino's flatmate when he moves into that apartment.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's kind of the most emotional part of the film, or one of the most emotional parts is his kind of super nice guy who he befriends, and he comes in and out of the movie towards, most of it. And at the end, he's killed, and it's pretty gruesome, but you don't see who did it, you just see his body. And that's kind of one of the pointers I think you're supposed to think of. Well, this guy's completely removed from that scene that was like the club scene. So why was he killed randomly in his building? And I think that's is really pushing you to believe that Al Pacino is the one who killed him. And it may not be related to the other crimes. It's just him. I think you're supposed to think that has a crush on this guy and is kind of like has feelings for him. Al Pacino's character can't come to terms with that, so he like lashes out and kills him. Because you never see that happen, so you don't know why that happened. You just see the result. So
Because you
that's kind of an
see Al
interesting weird.
Pacino going to the apartment. Is it his boyfriend, the guy that dies? It's his boyfriend, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which, again, was quite a weird scene. It's like, why is he behaving like this? It's odd.
I think you're supposed to think that he's jealous and wants to give some attitude to the boyfriend. Is like,
That's interesting, because it's not really that clear, is it? I suppose, again, it's the ambiguity that could
yeah,
explain that ending. And I think that's quite feasible.
yeah. I mean, if you don't like films with ambiguity, you're not going to like this film. But if you do like things that are mysterious and not spelled out and could have potential different characters doing different things that you'll never find out who did it or why.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what makes it a really much more multi-level kind of film for me and more interesting than just like a straight ahead like horror movie slasher movie where you don't really get any background or any kind of like idea why someone's doing something.
There are some really good features actually if you are a fan of this film, because it's obviously represented in 4K. I mean, the print is great. I mean, it really doesn't look like a film that was made, I suppose it's 79, wasn't it? It came out in 1980, but it doesn't look grainy at all. I mean, the details really do pop. It's 5.1 as well, because I think originally it was mono, I'm guessing, at that time.
Maybe because it's just kind of very standard. There's nothing really like booming or epic about the sound.
The soundtrack is great as well, because it's obviously that punk soundtrack, and there's lots of commentaries on this as well. There's commentary from William Friedkin, which I think you might have on your version, because you've got the version that came out, 15 years ago, was that?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And Mark Kermode's done a commentary as well on this. Again, like I say, he's a big fan. There's a commentary, a brand new one actually, featuring the original musicians involved with the soundtrack, because obviously that's one of the things that people do talk about is the soundtrack and how much they love the music in this. Interviews with Karen Allen, deleted scenes, alternative footage, on-set audio featuring the club scenes and protest coverage. There's a brand new interview with the actor, film consultant and former police detective Randy Jurgensen, an interview with actor Mark Zucker. So lots of interviews on this, Q&A footage. Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, it's a really good package. It's coming out on the 24th of February in the UK and retailing for about 40 quid. So yeah, 2-disc set. So it's pretty good. You haven't actually seen the special features, but some of those you've seen on the original package that you've got.
A couple really sparse short little things, but not too much on the original DVD release of it. My star rating is 4 stars.
I'm going for 3. I found it interesting to see this so long after its original release, because in some ways I think it has aged, but in a lot of ways I don't think it has.
I think it was coming at the end of the 70s, where I feel like 70s Hollywood films, like the new Hollywood kind of generation, were doing a lot more, not experimental, but a lot more art films and indie films and kind of like a non-commercial vibe. Even though they were being funded and released by commercial studios, they were allowed to be a little bit more off the beaten path.
Absolutely. I think I'm going for a low rating because I'm still questioning things. I suppose that's good in some ways, because obviously it's not a film that wraps everything up nicely. It's a film that does leave a lot of loose ends, and also I still can't decide if I'm offended by elements of it, because I know it's a film. Yes, it's based on a true story, but the actual production itself, I think is quite ballsy and quite direct, and I kind of like that. There are elements of it I didn't like, but I didn't dislike the film by any means, and a lot of people do have a real problem with it. I didn't really have a problem with it. Do you find any of it offensive? Obviously not, because you've given it 4 stars.
I mean, yeah, from being a gay person, yeah, there were certain things, like when some of the cops or something are saying homophobic things, it's like, that's offensive, but
then you know that they're a character, so characters are like that in real life, and it's a reflection of that reality, I suppose, isn't it?
Especially at that time, it was so... homophobia was just like kind of the way it went, and people just said that, and everyone's like, oh, whatever. Like, I think there's a lot more leniency for people being prejudiced about that kind of situation. I'm looking at it from 2025 into 1980. Yeah, it's offensive, but that's what most people were like that. So I'm not shocked. I'm just kind of like, that seems pretty accurate.
Like. Yeah. That's the same way I think. And I also think you can make a film and reflect the homophobia and the bad attitudes, but you can make it with the intention of showing what it was like, but not necessarily agreeing with the characters who were like that in the film. So I think as a piece of fiction, you can make a film that's like that. I mean, there are loads of films that I like that I wouldn't necessarily like the characters in the film or agree with their viewpoints, but I would appreciate the film.
There's actually two little interesting factoids I know about this film, having like read a lot about the creation of it. The first one is that it was based on a book which came out about 10 years before the film came out, so like 1970, I think is when
Yeah.
it came out.
New York Times reporter, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And it was like a mild hit. It wasn't like a massive, like huge seller, but it was like did relatively okay. Enough that the movie studios were interested in doing an adaptation of it. And one of the people who originally was lined up to start kind of doing pre-production on it was Steven Spielberg.
Wow. I never
Yeah,
knew
this is
that.
like mid 70s kind of.
Mind
Yeah, but
blown.
he maybe it was before right before Jaws or something, and then he kind of like lost interest, whatever, and it moved on. The other fact was recently reading Al Pacino's memoir. He thought the movie was he understood it was controversial. Maybe it was an after the fact thing. He felt bad about people misinterpreting the film and being offended by it. That he took all of the salary, the amount he made from the film, which was a considerable amount of money for being a huge star, and donated all of it to charity,
Wow.
to charities that maybe, I don't know if they were all LGBTQ charities, but charities they thought that would benefit from this amount of money being given to them as a kind of like apology, I guess, for doing a movie that people might be offended by. So I thought
That's
that was kind of
amazing.
interesting that he did
Wow,
that.
what an incredible thing to do. And I guess, yeah, because that does justify. I'd heard that he didn't really promote the film or not washed his hands exactly, but
No.
didn't really feel positive about advertising it.
Yeah, that was also kind of his persona. He really hated doing promotion. He was not that kind
Oh,
of an
okay.
actor. He just wanted to do the film and have nothing to do with any film he was doing afterwards. But that's part of the business. You have to go public and promote the thing. And he just hated doing that kind of stuff. And so it's not shocking he didn't want to do anything for the film.
Cruising coming out on 4K, UHD, Blu-ray. Long overdue, like I say. Big fan base out there. It's coming out on the 24th of February. Check all the details down below and there's a link. And also, Matt, you are part of Microfilm, who
Hmm.
I hear, little birdie tells me, have got new music coming out. Are you allowed to say anything about that?
Yeah, we have a new single coming out at the end of February, and another one coming out in March, and then a new album coming out at the end of March. Follow our Instagram and Blue Sky. We're at Microfilm Music on both of those platforms, and you'll see updates, you'll see information, and where you can get the records and all that stuff. And I'm sure Phil will add the link, below in the comment section.
I will. I'm glad you come. Have you come off X?
Yeah, no longer on that platform.
Good to see you, Matt. Good luck with all your music coming out. Of course, we'll keep pushing that on all the Boys on Film platforms. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you on the next one. Bye for now.
Bye bye.